Let's bring in Ketevan for more from Washington. Ketevan, clearly Joe Biden behind the scenes with his team, with Antony Blinken, with the operation there, playing a very important role in making this all happen. But of course, it was only 24, 48 hours ago, France was trying to push a resolution through the UN, America opposing that.
Yes, it seems that what the Biden administration was trying to do is to sort of defend Israel, back Israel on what really Israel wanted to see coming out of the U.S. as far as the public statements, but at the same time, behind the scenes in that quiet diplomacy, which are the words that the White House administration has been using for days now, being much tougher behind the scenes, but avoiding to do it to be tough on Israel out in the open. That was really what you saw over the past few days. And you saw those two strategies sort of starting to get closer and closer as the days went on. But as you said, just a couple of days ago, they were not even talking about a ceasefire in their public statements. When Secretary Blinken was asked about it, when the White House press secretary was asked about it, they were saying, we are calling for de-escalation. We believe that this is the best way forward. We are not talking about a ceasefire. We will support it if the parties decide to have a ceasefire. So they were really trying to stay away from using those words in public statement. But what we've heard from White House officials in the background is that the conversations, all the conversation, whether they were through Joe Biden, through Secretary Blinken, even through Vice President Kamala Harris, and down the chain of government with the Israelis, that over the few days that led up to what we're seeing today, the conversations and the tone of the United States started getting firmer and firmer and firmer on Israel, pushing them to move towards that ceasefire. And that's what led to that readout yesterday coming out of the White House of a call between Joe Biden and Benjamin Netanyahu, where the White House said that the U.S. president had expressed its hope and its expectation of a significant de-escalation on the path to a ceasefire. So really, it was a way for Joe Biden, someone who has negotiated with the Israeli government for decades, whether it was as a senator back in the 80s, as a vice president of the Obama administration, and now as a president, which is there is something that you do behind the scenes through diplomacy, and there is the public stance, and that's at least what the White House is saying is the strategy that worked.
And going forward, Ketevan, we're hearing sort of words from Antony Blinken which maybe point towards a greater involvement from the US in terms of what is happening across the Middle East.
Well, that is definitely something that the Biden administration wanted to avoid. Ever since Joe Biden took office, they've been trying to sort of not really focus on the Middle East, not really focused on the situation between the Israelis and the Palestinians. This was not the Trump administration, which was really focused on getting peace in the Middle East. You saw that with Donald Trump, with Jared Kushner. For the Biden administration, the Middle East was not the focus. The focus of the Biden administration was the United States' tense relations with China, with Russia, even with Iran, given the situation with the nuclear deal. So the Biden administration wanted really to focalize this and to move the focus of the American public, of American government, of American lawmakers on what it saw as the biggest threats or the biggest challenges for the United States, mainly Russia and China. But now they've been sort of sucked back into the situation in the Middle East. And you saw that with how careful Joe Biden was in making his first public statement or his first comments about the situation. It took several days before you heard some really high-ranking Americans speaking about it. And they've been sucked back in because even though they don't want to make it a focus, if something happens in the Middle East, especially with Israel, the Americans being the biggest allies of the Israelis, nothing can really happen without American involvement. And that was the message from both the Democrats and Republicans, even though they had different objectives. But both sides were pushing Joe Biden to be more invested in this Middle Eastern conflict, saying that America has a key role, maybe the key role to play between Israelis and Palestinians to sort of get this current situation under control and going forward, really creating the conditions for possible peace.
Kedem Gorgeous in Washington, thank you very much indeed for that analysis. Please stay with us. We'll come back to you as soon as we possibly can.